Welcome to the world of NDE 4.0. My name is Johannes Vrana and today is a great day because number one, I want to thank all of you for all the feedback I got, for all the subscriptions I got to the channel. Thanks a lot. And also because I'm going to beef up this channel a little bit. Let's see if you like it. What I will be doing, I will be showing some pictures in between and give me some feedback if you like it or if you would rather see me all the length of the video. But what I'm really excited about is the main topic of this presentation today. And that's the 4 industrial revolutions. So let's get started. But before we really get into the revolutions, let's look a little bit in what does this word mean, revolution. It means a fundamental and relatively sudden change. And the word change implies that there was always something before if you are speaking about the revolution. So if we think about the industrial revolutions, what was before industry? Before industry, we had handcraft. And due to some emerging technologies, that handcraft actually developed into what we now know as industry. And then we got the second, third, and fourth revolution with going deeper and deeper into the industrialization. Now, speaking about handcraft, we have to speak about the very beginning. And in this very beginning, what people had was their hands, they had fire, they had some simple tools to produce stuff. And now we're coming to the experiment. Let's see. So what you should be seeing now, this is a bakery from around 1630. So if you think about how a bakery looked back then and how a bakery looks now, and a bakery factory especially looks nowadays, you can immediately see the difference, how it evolved. Same is true here for producing some furniture. If you think about how wood was produced back in those days and how much effort you had to use to build some furniture and how easy it is nowadays, what all the industrial revolutions actually brought to us, helped us actually buying those products for a much more affordable price. Here we got a forging shop from back in those days. And I will be showing some pictures later about how a forging shop looks nowadays, and you will immediately see the difference between how it looked like back in those days and how it looks like now. And last but not least, and I really like this picture because it really shows handcraft, this is somebody making a comp maker. Could you imagine nowadays somebody producing comps in this way, or producing about anything in that way, besides for perhaps some specialist items? But if you think about the work this man is putting into that comp, can you imagine the price you had to sell this for to make it actually a living for this man? So, coming back to me, so talking about handcraft. Now, if we get into an example, perhaps you know even better than industrial production, it's music. Everybody knows music. And back in those days, how was it possible to listen to music? It was actually mostly a band playing music. And how many bands did you have at home back in those days? Yeah. You were going to some place to hear a band playing. Imagine how you listen to music nowadays. So that's about our hand manufactured goods. And then somewhere around, it was somewhere around the second half of the 18th century in England, there came a development with all those emerging technologies they had back then, like all those renewable energies, wind power, water power, also the upcoming steam engines, also coal and iron, and the first steel that people had. And this all led to a very simple way of doing mechanization, of making it easier to produce goods. And the industry of the first revolution is the textile industry. So, if we have a look into it, this is about how textile industry looked like right during that first revolution. Before that, you had a lot of people producing textile in a hand-fashioned way. That's why people back then, they could afford about one shirt and one pair of trousers, and perhaps one pair of shoes. After that first revolution, they were able, if you think about how many shirts do you have at home. And the other thing is, what really drove this first revolution is here the steam engines. Here a really nice picture of a steam engine, and it was not only textile industry, it was mining, it was all sorts of industries. This machine helped to establish somewhere from the beginning of the end of the 18th century to up to the 19th century. So if we come back to that one example we had before, the band playing music. If we think about it, what is the correspondence during that first industrial revolution? You could imagine the gramophone. You had a disc, you placed it on there, and you had some mechanical movement actually to record your disc. And suddenly it was possible for everybody to have not one band at home, but a couple of dozens. So there was really a big change. It was really that a lot of products, those products came on the market, and it was immediately a success because it enabled people to have music at home. Same is true for the textile industry, like we spoke about it. It brought affordable clothing. But on the other hand, if you imagine being somebody weaving something or producing textile in the old-fashioned way, those people lost their jobs. And people then had to work in those huge factories. So working conditions became more and more challenging. Those factories were mainly in the big cities, so you got some trends of urbanization. But now think about what happened in the long run. We got trade unions. The work conditions got better and safer. Somewhere during that first revolution, or in the beginning of that first revolution, the typical work week was an 82-hour week, clearly 7 days a week. And the typical life expectation back then was about 30 years. Then it brought more jobs than anybody could ever imagine before, because suddenly you needed all those jobs in this industrial production. Now, people needed different skills. Before that, they had to do everything with their hands, and finally, they had machines helping them doing it. And finally, it also brought a higher living standard for everybody. Okay, that was about the first revolution. Now, let's get into the second. The second revolution, and that was somewhere at the end of the 19th century, and most of the development back then was now in Germany, where the first one was more in the UK. And emerging technologies of the second technology is more something like new chemical and physical knowledge, like electricity. Electricity was really the driver of that second industrial revolution. It brought a couple of new industries, like the chemical, pharmaceutical, mechanical engineering. We got into enhanced mechanization. And finally, we also got into the assembly line. Ford installed the assembly line, I think, somewhere around 1913. So if we come back now to the example I showed before, the forging shop, and if we look in how it looks somewhere during that second industrial revolution, we can see the difference. We can see all this mechanization of that hammer forging those components. You can already see a lot what happened in those days. And then if we look into the automotive production, like here at Ford, what does that mean? Before that, how many people could afford a horse carriage? How many people could afford a car? How many people can now afford a car? So, taking once more the analogy we discussed all the time with the music. We had a band, we had a gramophone, and now we are getting into electric record players, radios. That makes listening to music so much more easy. But on the other hand, imagine all those gramophone manufacturers. They had to shift. They needed new knowledge. They needed to know about electricity, how to put a motor inside of a record player. So you could see, again, we have the shift of jobs, the shift of professions, different skills becoming necessary. Same with the affordable cars. It was getting more and more important to know, okay, how can I produce a motor or a car in a mass production way? But on the other hand, the second revolution clearly brought, or all the development to that second revolution brought way better and safer working conditions for everybody. We are now down to about a 60-hour week and a 6-day within 6 days. And life expectation went from 30 years already to 40 years. So again, we can say the second revolution, mainly, we got into a higher living standard for about everybody. Third revolution. Now we are getting into microelectronics, digital technology and computers, automation control for industrial production. If you think about offices, data processing, computers, laptops. Before that, everybody was doing big calculations with pen and paper. Now you have your tools in your computer doing all the work for you, doing all the calculations for you automatically. And it's also the start really of the entertainment industry. Most of this was now in the USA, most of it somewhere at the end of the 20th century, something like 1960, 1970. And once more here, this wonderful example of a forging shop. We saw how you forge components using handcraft. We saw somewhere during the second revolution, and now this is about the third revolution. What you see here, this pneumatic press here on the left side, and let me switch off myself and just show you this picture. This pneumatic press here on the left side, this is completely controlled with microelectrons. It's one single guy operating it. And that huge manipulator you see on the other side, that's also operated by the same one guy. And in the back, you can see this a little bit of cloth hanging around. So you can imagine how big those components are. Another example here of some industrial handling we're getting into during the third revolution, with robots, with all kinds of machines transporting the goods and so on. So we came from the band, we got into the gramophone, we got into radio or electronic ways of producing the music. Now we are getting into MP3s, CDs, a complete start of the entertainment industry, really, with all those computers, all the cell phones, all the computer games. Nothing of that was before. For sure, again, we're getting into that situation. We have multiple professions which are not necessary anymore. But we have multiple more which become necessary. There was nobody producing an MP3 player before or producing a computer before. So this is about the change happening during every revolution. So you get jobs which, or you have to have a shift of the skill set. And at the end, we finally got into better and safer working conditions. Now during the third revolution, you all know it, we are down to about a 40-hour week and a 5-day working week, coming from a 7-day working week. Life expectation, back then 30 years, now it's about 70 years, going up. We have more jobs than ever. We have higher living standards for everybody. Now, if we talk about those first 3 revolutions, this is really historians who defined it. It was always first the development happening, and finally some historians saying, okay, this was the first revolution. With the fourth revolution, it's a little bit different. With the fourth revolution, it's kind of a working title. It is something we already can see that something is happening, and we have a working title now so that we have something to work on. And what are the things which are already around? Something like the web mapping tools, something like Google Maps, self-driving vacuum cleaners, or self-driving cars, intelligent virtual assistants like Alexa. Alexa, play me music from. You can already see how this goes. Cryptocurrencies, e-currencies, blockchains, all this stuff. All the ride-sharing apps. So you can see where all of this is going. It's all going into apps, it's going into networking, and into data. Data is becoming the core of the fourth revolution. And we're using a lot of tools actually to help us deal with all that data. We have AI for better data processing. And we will be talking about all of them in later videos. So AR for better visualization, augmented reality, all the new computer technology. On the one hand, something like GPUs for faster computing. And on the other hand, all those tiny little computers, those Raspberries and stuff like that, which are really helping actually bringing networking, data access into the smallest devices you could imagine, into everything, into whatever you could imagine. 5G, connecting everything to the internet, every machine running around, thousands of them, 100,000, all the machines in a working environment. Cloud computing, additive manufacturing, 3D printing. And we already talked a little bit about the blockchains. So if we now get back to that one example we discussed with the band playing, the gramophone, the electric record player, going into MP3s, and now we're getting into intelligent virtual assistants. Just saying, Alexa, please play XYZ. And Alexa perhaps answers to me, oh, Johannes, you know what? XYZ is playing in 2 weeks in Munich. Do you want to buy tickets? If I say yes, then perhaps it tells me, oh, you could also buy some merchandising. And I can show you the map actually on some other tool. And I can show you the restaurant on the way to your concert. And I can already show you the menu so that you know what you want to order. Now, what does it take to get to that point? You need interfaces. You need digital interfaces between all those different tools. Now imagine you would have to build for each restaurant which wants to participate an individual interface into your map service. There would be hundreds, thousands, millions of interfaces. Wouldn't work. Therefore, what we need for this fourth revolution to happen is actually open interfaces, so that everybody uses the same interface and every restaurant can put its data into the same channel. And the very same is true talking about industrial manufacturing. The fourth revolution is all about collecting data, number one, from manufacturing, number two, from all of those handling machines you have in your production environment, from certain sensors you attach, from data from all your ERP, MES, or PLM systems. And it's all really to simplify, to enhance, and to make industrial production more secure, to streamline supply chains, to allow newer, cheaper, and safer products. But now, to get to this point, now if you think about some manufacturing environments, we have perhaps a few hundred thousands of machines in such a production environment. And now imagine that every one of those machines has a different interface. The goal of the fourth revolution, we couldn't do it. So therefore, with the fourth revolution, proprietary or open interfaces, this is really what will say, okay, who will be in business in the future? Even if you produce the best product, if you do not offer standardized interfaces, standardized open interfaces, your customer will not be able to integrate your product into his production facility, will not be able to collect the data, and will not be able to use your product to actually enhance his production. So finally, even that you might have the best product, the customer will not buy it because, yeah, you're not able to access, or he is not able to access your product. So this is about what the fourth industrial revolution is about. It's about networking. It's about bringing everything together. And like I talked about it in the first video, it's about collaboration. Everybody needs to open up his interfaces. Then we can all work together. We can have all kinds of devices, all kinds of apps, all kinds of data clouds. It will be more than enough work for everybody. But if we stick to the way we were doing business for the last 30 years, could be an issue for the future. So, if we think about all what we heard up to the moment, where we came from handcraft. We went to simple mechanization, to somehow a technical revolution, a digital revolution, and finally we're getting into an interconnected cyber-physical. Now, you might have noticed up to the moment I didn't speak about NDE at all, and this will really come in next week's video. But I will want to show you a very short forecast. This is why I think NDE and industry, both of them, belong together, especially during this fourth revolution. So, fourth revolution, it's about all the apps, it's about IoT, it's about connecting industrial, connecting all the devices in an industrial production environment. It's about better and safer working conditions. So perhaps during the fourth revolution, we could come to a point that perhaps we get from a 40-hour week down to a 30-hour week, and from 5 workdays to 4 workdays. And on the other hand, perhaps we could get from a life expectation from 70 years perhaps to 80 or 90 or 100. It will create more jobs, but jobs with different skill profiles. And finally, it will also result in higher living standards for everybody. So thank you once more for watching this video, about the 4 industrial revolutions. Next time, we will be talking about the 4 revolutions in NDE. As usual, I will put more information down into the description. I really hope you also like this video and that you will subscribe to this channel. I really hope that I will see you soon. So thanks for watching. See you soon. Thank you and bye.